Remember, the Valuation Masterclass is about transformation, not information. The process you're going through with TSMC is much more difficult and complex compared to Fastenal. And that's part of the transformation, because as you go through and you figure it out, and 1 week from now you've finished TSMC, you're going to look back and think, I can do this. And it's that confidence that is part of the transformation. So congratulations, you made it through week 7. We're going to go through a bunch of things tonight, but let's start off with reviewing. You've learned a little bit of advanced financial statement analysis, constructing the cash flow statement and identifying key drivers for the future, and how to account for non-controlling interests. You've been learning about how to benchmark companies using the world-class benchmarking scorecard and the FEMR quantamental investing across the world tools. And you're going to start considering constraints to growth. All right, let's talk about life lessons of a financial analyst. This is the new one. It's rare to differ from consensus, and when you do, make it loud and clear. If you're right, but quiet, nobody gains from your insight. Of course, you can be wrong, but you won't be in as much trouble as you think if you've made your reasons clear. Nobody expects you to get it right all the time. Let me show you an example of how to do this. This is what I did last week, actually earlier this week. At Phenomena, I was talking about Trump, and I said Trump needs to get his way, and he's about to get his way. With the upcoming midterm election in November of 2026, Trump wants to maintain a Republican majority in the House and Senate. And to secure that, he needs a strong U.S. economy, and he wants lower rates. Powell's Fed chair term expires in May of 2026. It's too long. He needs Powell out faster. He's been talking about Kevin Hassett as a favorite to be the next chair, but no matter who is a favorite, basically, he wants interest rates cut. Here we can see the market expects the Fed target rate to be above 3%. You can see the bar, the line chart at the top shows the current consensus. And my forecast is by June, down to 2%. And by October, down to 1%. This is a dramatic difference from consensus. And surprisingly, we seem to be contrarian by thinking that Trump will get his way, and that Hassett or Walsh or Waller will cut rates to support Trump in the midterms. Now, the point is, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I gave this presentation, and I verbally mentioned that I taking a different view from consensus, thinking that Trump wants to get interest rates down. Politicians want those interest rates down too, because if they're paying 4% on government debt and they can reduce that to 2%, they're going to cut the interest expense in the federal budget in half. And when they do that, they have more money to spend, which is what politicians want to do. But I only verbally stated, I didn't make it clear in the presentation. And you know what? If I'm right, nobody's going to remember. You have got to be the person that makes it very clear only when you're different from consensus, right? We're not talking about, there's a podcast I listened to, Jeff Snyder, and he's a really bright guy, but every single title of his is, oh my God, the world is going to collapse. See what happened to rates in Europe or something. And the next one is, the world is going to collapse. And he is the boy who cried wolf, basically. He said it so many times that you can't believe it anymore. And so when you're significantly different, you've got to make a stand. And this is an example of that. So let's look at your notes. Nice. Good one. It's been a while since I made these diagrams, and it's fun to see them. All right. So Mayna's got 247 hours, incredible amount of dedication. And Myat has got 183. Surya both have about 170. Fujisan's got 164. You guys are really putting in the time, so well done. Now, here's the update. Team 1 has 7 people at DOR risk on Monday. Team 2, 8 people at risk. Team 3, 8 people. Team 4, 10 people. 7, 8, 8, and 10. That's 33 people at risk. Do you want to see or get a taste of winning? So, another life lesson. Valuation is a negotiation. There's no correct value for a business. Just because someone understands the formulas related to valuation does not mean that their valuation is accurate. And since valuation is based on assumptions related to expectations of the future, two people rarely come to the same conclusion. Therefore, value is determined through a negotiation process driven by the motivations and assessments of the buyers and sellers. All right, let's talk about where you're at. Your focus is to get your second report done. You're going to work on getting TSMC valuation approved, going through your constraints to growth and ESG, wrapping up your report by the end of the week, and Modeling Monday. Be prepared. Next Monday, you need to be ready to present your TSMC model and get live feedback. Prepare your questions as you go through the weekend. Don't be shy. Make sure you show up. So each bootcamp attendee will record a video presentation on TSMC, and 2 presenters will show up and present their reports live on Friday next week. Also, we're going to run a live debate between the 2 on Wednesday of week 9. Now let Momin know in Slack if you want to volunteer for this show of your power and knowledge. So 2 students are going to be presenting 3 key stories of TSMC. Momin, take it away.
Right, so we have some volunteers for the stories. So Arush, ready to go first?
Okay.
Then Surya, be ready to go after.
Is my screen visible?
Yep, now it is. But your microphone's on mute.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to present 3 key stories. Do we need to present or just show it?
Go.
Okay. So I'm going to present 3 key stories on the TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. For my first story, I'm going to its packing becomes TMC next margin, as TSMC is developing into new market, and it's developed its CoWAS new system in which it's developing 2 nanometer chips which has a higher advantage compared to its competitors. For it become packaging, it's earn higher margin than the standard wafer production which is doing as of now. Second, the revenue in this segment is 2x than the standard production, and in this new packaging technology creates a moat for TSMC, which is hard for its competitor to achieve in the next few years. For the second story, I think it's about the AI infrastructure, which is not going to go anywhere till 2027. Yes, as big tech spendings plan to support revenue for the years, demand is going to only rise in the coming years as the chips is going from business to daily users, and gamers are also continuing for the demand of the chips. Third, According to the TMC annual report, the demand for the tokens has been double quarterly, and McKinsey predicts around $500 billion AI industry till 2030. So chips are going to be needed in the upcoming years. For third story, I'm going to cover about the US manufacturing Arizona plant, which TMC is currently working on, and it's going to decrease its margin in the short run, but it create a risk averse for US customers. Second, it will create a
Okay,
low risk profile
time's
for
up.
the TSMC as
Time's
it
up.
will
Okay,
reduce tariff.
time's up. Time's up. All right. First thing on your second line on this, do you notice any error? Arush, can
No.
you see any mistake on the second line?
In the story or TSMC title itself?
Title.
No.
Look carefully.
The code, right?
Yeah, it's not
Yeah, I put
it's not TSMC.
yeah, but the code is actually TSM.
Yeah, well, then you use TSMC in the next one. So if you decide that you're going to use TSM, then use TSM all the way through.
No, the
So,
company ticker code is TSM
one
according
thing,
to the Nasdaq.
Arush, one thing to note is that TSM is the ADR listed in the US stock market, but we said you're going to value the company in Taiwanese dollars. So if you want to add the ticker code, just add the one in Taiwan, which is 2330. So
Okay,
don't use
changes
the
to
ticker
number.
code. Yeah.
But what I'm just saying is that if you're going to say, I don't mind if you want to say TSM, but just don't say TSM in the title and then say TSMC in story number one. You know, keep it consistent.
Okay, but if
Okay.
I change this to ticker code to number, so what should I
I
change
don't like
the?
the ticker code. I wouldn't do that because nobody knows the ticker code. But Moment's point is that's the ticker code in Taiwan. I would just use TSMC. That's because that's what people generally call it. So you don't have to always use a ticker code. You can use an abbreviation that looks, or that's the commonly used abbreviation. Okay, so
Okay,
the story one, it's a little bit unclear to me. It's hard to build confidence that the next margin engine is packaging because one thing I don't really understand, what is the size of packaging relative to total revenue? Is that 2% and growing to be 20, or is it
currently is 15%. It's going to be 25 to 30%.
you need to tell those pieces of evidence?
Actually, my doubt is the actual technical word for is CoWAS, which is a new technology TCM is working on. But I'm not sure if I can put it in the title and if everyone can understand about that. It's a technical term, so
I don't mind that you don't use a technical term, but you're not giving any evidence to support it. You're just telling us that margins are, higher. And it's so I just think you gotta provide a little bit more support in there. Like unique packaging technology creates a moat. I mean, it sounds good, and TSMC has other modes, but that's a pretty strong statement. So think about how you can support that with evidence. Let's look at the second one. AI infrastructure wave extends through 2027. If you talk about big tech spending plan, I think it would have been interesting to say, for instance, 10 billion at Microsoft, 15 billion at ChatGPT as an example, or OpenAI. You don't have a lot of space, but giving some example of that, is interesting, or an aggregate of all of it. And then also, let's see. Yep, that's it for me. What about Moment and others?
Like for me, I think I don't get, the clear outcome out of most of the stories. Like for instance, in the first one, you were talking about packaging and that's the next margin engine. But then down below in the last story, you're talking about, resilience despite margin headwinds. So I'm not sure if you're expecting margins to increase or decrease, or maybe like, that plant in Arizona wouldn't affect the margins negatively, maybe. So, like a lot of questions I have in
Yeah,
my mind, maybe you have the
actually,
answer.
what I found
But
out, you can continue. So,
yeah, so I mean, if you have the answers in your head, make sure that you have them in your stories so that you avoid getting asked about something you already know. So just to try to answer the questions before you even get asked. And also, like some of the titles doesn't show the impact, like AI infrastructure wave extends through 2027, then what? Is that like good for the company, bad for the company? Like what is the benefit, they can gain? So like be careful of those things, and I'm gonna pass it to the rest of the team, Lee and others.
I was just going to suggest that maybe the packaging story you could emphasize about the bottlenecks that were in play in recently in 2025, and I believe that the 2026 order line is jam-packed. So there's the queue for delivery is immense, and I think they've pretty much got the monopoly on that at the moment. So I haven't fully investigated, but I do believe that the the bottleneck was on CoWoS on the packaging, and that the forward view is very strong.
Yeah, that's good. So that's like, it's a good story. It's just that how do we support it with even better and better evidence? And there's good evidence out there. Okay, great. Any others? All right, let's continue.
Right, Arush, well done.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for the feedback.
Yep.
that's much better than the very first presentation that you did with your industry analysis.
Yes.
So keep it up. But this time we didn't see your face, so make sure that you
Yes.
show us your smile.
Okay.
Okay, so
Actually,
let me.
what I found about the company is it's a very diverse company. On the one hand, it's a high moat and it's growing very fastly. And on the other hand, it's opening new plant in Arizona, which is going to decrease its margin as it's currently at 50 to 55% gross margin. And if they start new plant, it's going to decrease. So I'm not sure what to include in the story, a positive or negative outlook. It's have both on the same side.
Yep.
Just to try to have a view, take a stance and have a view, like which would win, and then go with it. As Andrew said, when he went against consensus, he just spoke up loud. So just tell us what is your opinion. So Surya, please go ahead.
You are still mute.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep. Can you make it a little bigger? Can you press that magnifying plus sign?
Can you see it now?
Yeah, it's smaller now. Try to make it bigger.
Is it okay?
Couple more. Couple more. One more. There you
Yes.
go. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. Wonderful. Let's go.
Okay. Hi, all. Today I'm going to present about the three key story of TSMC with the code 2330. For story one, strong revenue growth for HPC driven by AI infrastructure. High performance computing or HPC, including AI, 5G, and data center chips. This chip segment accounted for 57% of TSMC total wafer sales in third quarter 2025. The highlights the structural shift toward AI infrastructure. For story 2, high wafer margins driven by advanced node pricing. TSMC 3 nanometer class about 23% of wafer revenue. For 5 nanometer, it's about 37% of wafer revenue. And the last one about 7 nanometer processor. This chip collectively represent 74% of total wafer revenue in third quarter 2025. This advanced nodes command premium pricing and drive higher margins. For the third story, Apple NTP chips drive smartphone revenue growth. TSMC recognized significant revenue from Apple NTP-based processors. These premium chips drive the smartphone segment about 30% of wafer revenue, driven by Apple continuing its annual product refresh cycles. That's all.
Okay, a couple of things. One thing is it's not necessary to use limited, just Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company is enough, just because it's not a formal situation. So that's just a little thing that you don't always have to include it. The one thing that's interesting is that the first evidence point of story 1 and the first evidence point of story 2 is kind of a description. It's like, you say in story 1 about HPC, well, people don't know HPC, so you got to describe what it is, right? So it makes sense, but it loses the impact of what you're saying. So I'm trying to think about, how, you want to try to say every statement has to be like a judgment or an evidence or a supporting statement, not a descriptive statement. And that's hard, but you need to try to, I agree, you want to say high performance computing, HPC is good, because then somebody may not know it will get it. So that's something that you got to work on a little bit. Now, one of the things that I was thinking about is that in story number 2, bullet point, evidence point number 1, again, it's a little bit of a description of what you're talking about. And then you say that these chips collectively represent 74% of total wafer revenue. And then it made me think, oh, wait a minute, that's already really, really high representation in total revenue. Can it go higher?
No, I don't think
Maybe not. And therefore, let's just say that they just maintain that position. Then it's not necessarily, it's not bad, they're high margin, but you could also argue that margins have peaked until they find their next high margin thing. So that story there, I think you just got to think about. Now, it could be that your argument is the company's going to be able to sustain the margin, right? I think that's partially what you're saying. So just, think about sustain versus expand and that type of thing, and just make it really clear. And then, okay, that's my feedback. Moment.
Right. So I think also, like, instead of mentioning some facts, like, okay, 3 nanometer is 23% of revenue, 5 is like 37 or something. Maybe just focus on the new things that going to happen, like 2 nanometers. What are your expectations for 2 nanometers? And then you said like premium pricing and drive higher margins. So tell me, like, what price they could charge against their competitors, and how can they gain revenues, and then like make it a price story, let's say. Okay, what are the premium prices that they would charge for the 2 nanometers? Who are the main customers? Because down below you talked about Apple and so on. So what could be the new partnerships that they could gain? And they have like 5 main customers, let's say Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, Google, Qualcomm, and so on. So like those 5 companies, what's new? Like what they can offer them, because if they lost one of those, it's going to be a big problem for them. Let's say one of them shifted to Intel, like that 1.8 nanometer that they are trying to make. If one shifted, then it's going to be a big problem. Also, another thing is like driving higher margins and so on. I have seen that in the recent quarter, like the margin reached 59%. So 59% profit margin. Could it go higher? Just, tell us how. Okay, that's
No,
the thing,
it's quite high, right? 74%. I think
Yeah.
it cannot go further.
Yep. Yep.
So maybe like the best they could do is maintaining that high margin, maybe.
Mm.
It's a problem of life, right? You work so hard to be successful, and then you reach a point where you can't go any further, and then the world attacks you. Yeah. Okay.
Others,
With the margins on the advanced nodes, it might be interesting to go into the demand for it. Like the demand is insane. Like they literally can't make them fast enough, which is why they're commanding a premium price on these products. So there could be an angle to look into that side of things as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a sexy story too, right? That there's 5-year backlog of demand. They can price it however they want. Okay. All right.
right? So
That's all
let's
right.
keep it moving. Yeah, well done.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so we should have Tim and Minna. So Minna, I think, is not here because she's facing connection problems. So Tim, have you made it home or not?
Yeah, just got home. Exactly. Please, can you wait for a minute, please?
Yep.
Sorry,
Yep. We can.
Okay.
It's okay. Mana's already done a huge amount of work this week, so
Yeah. She reached out a couple of minutes ago and like saying her connection is really bad. She cannot join.
Can you see my screen now?
yep.
Yes.
If you can you turn your phone and make it landscape? I don't know if that'll work.
Okay.
We do.
I will
Yeah.
try.
Perfect. Then just
Okay.
push my picture out because
Oh, sorry.
Yep, there you go. I don't look that good. All right,
Okay.
go for it.
So, hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the Taiwan Semiconductor Company or TSMC. So, as I do some forecast, I think it's pretty bullish. So the story is pretty positive for me. So let's go for the first story. The AI accelerator demands drive the TSMC growth. Since AI accelerators are core components of modern HPC system or high performance computing, and HPC is 60% of TSMC revenue as of the third quarter, and it's supported by the AI accelerator market is projected to grow at over 30% CAGR by 2032, which it could drive TSMC growth. Now for the second story, TSMC could hold a strong position as a technologies leader. TSMC 3 nanometer revenue captures over 23% of revenue, potentially exceeds 5 nanometer. So as of the third quarter, the revenue of third nanometer is gradually increased compared to last year, and the amount of revenue from 3 nanometer is pretty high as equal to 5 nanometer. The 3 nanometer is good for the near term, but now they're developing 2 nanometer, which would be impactful for the future. And this 2 nanometer is the first node to adopt gate-all-around nanosheet transistors. Now for the last stories. Sustain returns to deliver profitable growth to TSMC. Gross margin last quarter is supported by cost improvement and high utilization rate. However, the overseas expansions may dilute margins in the near term by 3%. But in the long term operational improvement, it would offset this initial margin pressure. Yeah,
Okay,
so
good.
this is my key stories.
Yep. So in the evidence points in story number 1 are kind of statements of information. Like, okay, what's HPC? Now, also, you probably want to spell out HPC just because people won't know it. But just saying, I think that first evidence point that it doesn't have any real evidence. And 60% of TSMC's revenue as of third quarter, it's still it's kind of a statement, not necessarily a forward-looking one. So think about how you can craft that into something going forward. Who is expecting that the AI accelerator market is? Who's projecting it to grow over 31?
It's the research that I found. So but I didn't write a reference here.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to somehow, reference. You could reference a company, you could reference third-party research, but you just want to make sure it's clear that it's not you. Now,
Yeah.
eventually, by the time we get to next week, it will be you, right? Now you can
Yes.
say, you could say third party and then, all that, but, ultimately we're going to move very quickly for you to take a strong position there. Story number 2 feels like it's kind of, again, a kind of a statement of fact. It's already in a strong position as a leader in tech. So, could it hold that position? Well, it already has been holding that position. So think about, being a little bit more sensational or the like by saying something like, it's going to hold the position, for 10 more years, as an example, 5 more years, trying to make it even more clear there. And also, story number 3, sustained returns still delivers profitable growth. That is a very general statement. And the question is, why? What's driving that growth? You're talking about cost improvement and higher utilization, maybe one of those things, maybe not. Maybe it's their innovation, I don't know. But that third story, I think you got to think about, something more powerful about what's going on underneath. Okay?
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Moment.
Yeah, just a couple of things. So in the second story you were talking about, you explained that 3 nanometer is better than like 5 nanometer, and then 3 nanometer is good for near term, but 2 nanometers is for the long term. So maybe like tell us, just focus right away. Okay, 2 nanometers. What about the future? What they can gain out of this? What is like the mode that they could build, and what differentiates that from all of its predecessors? That's one thing. Also, if like 3 nanometer would have like some presence in their revenues and so on in the upcoming years, just to try to explain that, like tell us your views about the future instead of just explaining this with this, that's better than this, and so on. Also, for the last story, I got a bit confused. So first he said the expansion would dilute margins, but then long-term operational improvements would offset the initial margin. So I'm not sure which side you're picking. Is like margins are going to be diluted, or it's gonna be like it's gonna rebound back or something like that. So maybe if you think in just short term margins are going to go down, explain how and why and to what level, and then why they would rebound again. I think that's what you might need to focus on. Lee and
Okay.
others.
I would maybe just suggest that in story 2, try to focus. I would perhaps focus on the 2 nanometer. It's the in story. It's the latest product, and it seems to be where no one else can touch them at the moment. So that really seems like that's going to be their future moat, or until competition catch up. So maybe spend a bit of time elaborating on 2 nanometer and what that could bring.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like that could even be story number 2 title. 2 nanometers is going to secure growth for the next 5 years, or whatever. And then you support that.
Okay.
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you, because
Okay.
minutes around.
So let's just talk for a couple minutes about it. TSMC is a brand new company for you guys, and part of what you're learning in the Valuation Masterclass is how to dig into something and start figuring it out. And that is what makes you a valuable employee. That's what makes you a valuable analyst. And I always am remembering from one of our students Phoenix, his nickname was. And he explained on my balcony at my home at a party that we had here that he went to work on his first day at an internship, and they gave him an assignment to study an industry. And at the end of the day, he submitted the work. He didn't realize that they were expecting him to take like a week. And he turned in a really great report on the industry that he wrote in a day. And he said his boss said, I've never seen anybody do what you just did. And he said, I realized that the Evaluation Masterclass Bootcamp taught me that. To grab it, learn it, move fast. Now, go. Get the information, draw your conclusions, and move. And that is this concept of fast quality. And if you can build fast quality into your work style, you're going to beat your competitors by far. And that's the practice that you're getting right now. Go, move it, figure it out. Read it, discuss it, ask. Sandar talked about how she asked a friend, I don't know anything about this, right? And she asked a friend who knew something about it. Ask people, read, learn, like that. I just can't think of anything that's more valuable than be able to independently be dropped into a situation and figure it out on your own and come to a conclusion. Now, you're going to do that with 3 companies. I would say with Fastenal, we helped you learn about the company. And the company's super simple, so it's not confusing or hard to learn. But this is what separates the men from the boys, and that is, how do we drop into a situation knowing nothing and get enough information to form an opinion or a judgment and support it with evidence? And what I saw tonight was excellent work for your one week in, right? Just 1 week in. And just wait till next week. You guys are gonna have formed your opinion, pull together your reports, and you'll be done. Now, life doesn't always go that fast. And when you go to work, they're not gonna tell you to do something in a day. And Phoenix's boss didn't tell him to do it in a day. He just told him, do this. He just didn't know, so he did it in a day. But, you'll have more time in real life. But right now, it's about really digging in. And it's going to be, this is a big part of the transformation, because when you've done that with 3 companies, and then you graduate, you're going to basically say, I can walk into any situation, and they can tell me to value any company, and I can do it. And I have confidence that I can. And that confidence is so valuable for you in your career and in your future. And it's not a false confidence. We're not pumping you up. You're great. You're the best. That's awesome. We don't have that bullshit in boot camp. We're not talking you down, but we don't talk you up. We're realistic. We're realists. And we basically are putting the pressure on you to say, you can do this. You can perform. Other students have done it. You can do it. And you'll be an example for future students that they can do it. So that's my closing remarks. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything in there, but feel free or ask any question.
Yeah, I might share something about this week.
Yep.
Because during a week, I have a bachelor class in my university, so it hold and carry much work this week here.
Yep.
And I want to say that sometimes I think I want to take a rest, but I need to go of it to make the work finish in Thursday.
Yep.
That's all for me.
Yep. That's okay. And, we all have to take a rest at some point. I sleep every night. But the minute I get up, I'm relentless. And so just stay relentless for all of you guys. And there's just so much that you're going to learn and so much that you're going to become. And then we're going to be happy to see you make that transition into the next person that you want to be, the person that you want to, the confidence that you want to have. You're going to get it here. So well done. Well done. It's not easy. It's next week's got to pull it all together. Remember, you can change your mind. You thought it was a buy, now it's a sell. You thought it was good, now you think it's bad. You can change your mind. So don't worry about that. In fact, exercise that muscle of changing your mind, and it will serve you for the rest of your life. All right. See you on Monday.